if you're just joining now, again, my name's Prajnamanas, and I'll be taking this Wednesday night meditation session with you. It's my first evening live stream, so I'm very, very excited. Looking forward to meditating with you all and sharing just a few thoughts about meditation. We've only got an hour, so I think I'll get straight to it, except to just mention the format. So I'll speak for 10 or 15 minutes. We'll do maybe 20 minutes of meditation, and then there'll be time for me to have a crack at answering some of your questions after that. So from when I'm talking, do be posting your questions in the live chat. And I think the tradition is to put a capital Q before the question. Yep. So type a capital Q and your question. Well, anytime from after I start exploring tonight's theme. So post your questions before we meditate, or afterwards if your meditation clarifies to you what you'd like to ask. Okay, hope that's clear enough. So I was given a title this evening. I like being given a title, which was How to Find Out What You Really Want from Your Life. We're in a week of how-tos, and I think we've had how to live without regret, how to meditate. Now I've been asked to tell you how to find out what you really want from your life. And I like a title because it makes you think. Always good to be made to think. And also because I thought, find out what you really want from your life. I'm not sure sitting and meditating for 20 minutes is going to tell you. I'm not sure you'll come up from one meditation knowing exactly what you want from your life. It could even, a regular meditation practice, change the terms of that question, or even make you know with less certainty exactly what you want, or make you slightly less able to articulate it. But hopefully it will tune you into what you value more, and help you at least guide your way intuitively, even if you can't spit out in a single sentence what you want from your life. Short answers to that tend to be pat anyway. So the first thing I thought about this, I asked myself, how can meditation help you know what you want from your life, is that I've never really thought of meditation as separate from communication. And by communication, I mean contact and discussion with people we really know and who really know us, friendship, basically. I never had a meditation practice that wasn't folded in from the start with deepening connections with other people doing the same, people who were also starting to come along to the Buddhist Center like me, and people who've been doing that for a lot longer. That's probably because I came along to the Buddhist Center only 9 years ago, which doesn't feel like that long, but it was before everybody had at least downloaded and tried Headspace before they came along. Now, if you ask, it's been getting pointless actually to ask a shrine room full of people when we're able to gather in shrine rooms who meditated before, because all the hands in the room, bar a few, tend to go up, whereas when I first came along, well, my first experience of meditation was stepping into the building, the London Buddhist Center, and having a go. And I have observed that people who have taken meditation via an app tend to have found that useful up to a point, and then want to join regular meditators and be in a room with someone teaching them, but also other people trying the same thing pretty reliably. People tend to want to do that after a while if meditation is really touching their life, if they're wanting to take it a bit deeper. And I also say that because, except for a few remarkable beings, I don't know how far meditation will take us without meaningful connections with other people doing the same, even though sometimes it may seem as though it's doing that. It's quite possible for meditation to take us down wrong roads. It's very difficult to measure our own progress with meditation. But it's quite possible to have strong experiences while meditating, or feel our mind starting to change, feel our world starting to soften and brighten up, maybe become more mysterious, maybe even just more vivid. Maybe we'll experience our lives more vividly. I mean, I know that was my own experience, that after I started meditating, my spectrum of experience, emotional and otherwise, even dreams and images and imagination, sort of widened in all directions like that, if you sort of mean, sometimes for the more challenging, and always for the more inspiring. So it deepened my life. Not just deepened sounds like downwards, if you sort of mean it. It deepened and heightened my life. Maybe that's what I'm trying to say. So you might be experiencing that privately, but I think that pretty soon we need to get into communication about our meditation practice, but also just get into more communication generally in the midst of a community of meditators. So I mean, the community I live with, Max and Claudio upstairs, for example, we don't sit around the dinner table every evening saying, "How was your mindfulness of breathing today?" And the same again the next day. We'll sometimes talk about meditation. Tends to work better one-on-one anyway, actually, than at the dinner table. We'll sometimes talk about meditation, but what it will give a group of meditators is a common framework for looking at our life. So it helps us have a common language for the values we're working towards, but also as our self-awareness deepens through meditation, we will need friends to reflect that back, show us where we're getting that wrong, which is what I mean about meditating for a long time on your own. Rejoice in our good qualities as we develop them, and sort of show each other along the path. A teacher of mine once said that I think I was probably trying to figure out, well, Maitreya Bandhu, a lot of you will know him, who ordained me and gave me my name. He's, I don't know, 25 years older than me, maybe, which is an excuse to mention that it's his birthday today, for anyone who knows him. So Maitreya Bandhu and I once, I was trying to figure out something, I think, about our friendship, because I don't think I'd had friends in their 50s till I met him, not real friends anyway, and I was experiencing his input and guidance in my life quite strongly. I was very grateful for it, but sometimes couldn't quite figure out what sort of a figure he was in my life, and I think I just asked him and how he saw it, and he said something like, in the case, I mean, he wouldn't talk about himself in this way, if you sort of mean, he generalized it, but he said in the case of a much more experienced person and a less experienced person, we'll be going along the path together, with the more experienced person leading the way most of the time. And I really, really liked that. I think he might have said climbing a mountain, with the more experienced person leading the way most of the time, but you're climbing it together. So there's quite a lot in that image, I thought. And it was a mountain rather than a road. One is that there's, the mountain is, I don't know, it's more than a walk. It's more than a trip out. It's a long trip, probably. It's going to have a lot of, I don't know, plateaux, clefts and rock faces and sort of challenges, sheltered bits, and so on. You probably need to do it with others. I think some people climb mountains alone, don't they? But mostly they do it in crews, I think. And the more experienced person leading the way most of the time, but not all the time. And as we deepen our friendships in the spiritual community or the community of meditators, sometimes those lines will blur. More experienced who's not. So you'll have someone leading the way most of the time, but crucially, they're in communication with each other. So it's not just one way. That's partly what I'm saying there. But the reflecting back that our friends can do for us won't just help kind of, I don't know, pull us up on it where we're falling short. It will help reflect back to us our whole shape to what we're like. All of us have got sort of multi-layered depth of character and conditioning and previous experience, and all of us is a unique sort of shape in our community. On birthdays, we rejoice in people's good qualities. We did it for our friend Alex just a week or two ago, and it was a wonderfully positive evening, but also quite informative, I think, for him and for us, because all 12 of us in the community speaking out what we appreciate about him filled out in a gradual, very, very sort of warm, appreciative way something of the shape of this person, which I think helps clarify what that person can contribute. I think it's tempting to fantasize when we're young. I certainly did a lot of this about being all sorts of things. Maybe we want to go to the moon. Maybe we want to be a concert pianist. Maybe we want to be a kind of bedraggled barefoot poet, a company CEO. We've probably got an image for it. Maybe we've even got multiple images going at once. When I was younger, I wanted to be a writer, but I can remember having at least a phase where I wanted to be a policeman. I mean, no idea could be more ridiculous now, I'm afraid. And I think that's part of what I'm saying, is that I know now, I'm 35, so it's high time I knew this. Perhaps I knew it some years ago, that I'm not going to be a policeman. I'm still trying to figure out what my exact shape and what my contribution is, because it's a task that goes on and sort of deepens. But certainly my friends have helped show me what it might be. And I think that can help show us how we can be a friend too. So, yeah, I hope that helps us to be realistic, but also to really sort of broaden out the picture of ourselves. On a birthday of mine in our community some years ago, somebody started by saying, "I'd like to rejoice in your innocence." I was really taken aback. I didn't know what he meant. And it wasn't exactly what I wanted to hear. But I think I've since learned to distinguish innocence from naivety. And I'd now hear it as a very positive thing. And I think he meant being of a basically trusting nature, giving the benefit of the doubt, being willing to sort of start afresh with somebody after a difficulty with them. Actually, I don't know that much about what he did mean, but I've got a better idea now. And that helped me understand something about myself. So I think if meditation does anything, particular in regard to help us know what we want from life, it can help us know our particular shape, and how to be a friend to people. And that will tell us something of how we can make good use of our life. Because as well as being, I don't know, a bedraggled poet or a company CEO or a policeman or a concert pianist, we'll need to just find our way of making a contribution. But especially, I think we'll do that through friendship. So whatever image we've got of ourselves, our life in reality will exist very much in connection with others and be highly dependent on those connections. So I think we get to know ourselves in relation to others, but it's only really by being a friend and by practicing being a friend that we'll know what kind of friend we can be. So just a last point on that. I know I've thrown out quite a few things here. So like I say, do be typing your questions for after we meditate, which I want to get onto shortly. But the reason I mention practicing being a friend, and this is the connection with the meditation we're going to do in a moment, is that I don't think friendship is a state or an object or a given. I think it's an attitude and an action or a series of actions. So rather than a friendship existing between the two people as though there were a third item sitting somewhere in the air between them, really, you've only got those two people and how they act towards each other, which comes from, well, their volition towards each other, so their attitude. So I think you can act as a friend. In a way, whether or not you would call somebody a friend yet, you can act as a friend to somebody straight away. Standing at the door of the Buddhist center here when we're open is something of a practice of that, I think. If you've done the Metta-bhavana practice, it's something of an image for the fifth stage of the Metta-bhavana, because anybody and everybody could walk in through that door. And in years to come, a few of them might be your own good friends. At first, probably a lot of them you've never seen before, have no existing connection with them. But what we're cultivating at the Buddhist Center is the potential to be friends with any of them. Our founder has said that he feels it's possible to be friends with any other human being. It's quite a strong statement, and then it gets stronger. He says he'd rather die than give up that view. So possible to be friends with any other human being. How do we do that? I think we start with this practice, the Metta-bhavana, which, rather than a way of forcing ourselves to be friends with people, is really a practice of openness to friendship with anybody. So we'll do a period of the Metta-bhavana in a moment to just put what I've been saying into well, actually, to meditate a little bit on what I've been saying. Don't worry about thinking it through. I'll be leading us through the meditation, so you don't need to remember anything I've said so far. But I really see this practice, and it doesn't matter if you haven't done it before, as a practice of being open to more and more and more people. I'm always wary if somebody feels they've got enough friends in their life and doesn't want any more. I don't think it's finite. I think we can always be open to new connections and new friendships. And this practice, the Metta-bhavana, really gets at what Sangharakshita, our founder, is saying there, helps us practice at least the possibility of being friends with any other human being. And thus helping us to discover what we're really going to want from our life, but also crucially how to go about that, i.e. via our friendships. So without more ado, I'll lead us through the practice, probably in 3 stages. We'll sit for about 20 minutes. So be making yourself comfortable if you're not already, or be setting up your meditation posture if you haven't already. Either Max or Claudio will dim the lights. And if you haven't meditated before, just make sure that you've got enough cushions underneath you. And enough to support your hands. So you could pile up a few cushions to your hands, or tie a jump around your waist and lay your hands in them. And if you're sitting on a chair, you could just put your hands on a cushion in your lap and have your feet flat on the floor. And you could be following a few breaths as they pass in and out of the body, just to help settle the mind. Perhaps see if you can let your weight sink down a little more into the seat. And see if you can ungrip a bit in the thighs and the belly. Let the shoulders soften. And be softening the face. And make sure the eyes aren't scrunched up or the brow furrowed. Just let the eyes be softly closed. And make sure the breath is free to move in and out. And in this first stage of this short Metta practice, as well as perhaps just enjoying the quiet of what you're doing now, and appreciating that you've decided to do this with your evening. You could start calling to mind something you've done recently that was kind or generous, so which somebody else appreciated. Or even if they were not aware of it, where you could see yourself acting with kindness. So just see how that leaves you feeling about yourself towards the world. And also keep coming back to the body and just relaxing the hands, the belly, the shoulders and face. You can always come back to the sensations of the breath. So we'll now bring a good friend to mind. And as you do this, you want to just keep a bit of contact with that sense of yourself as someone who can act kindly, generously. But turn that attention now towards this good friend. This friend is particular. They are themselves and no one else. So they have their particular shape and temperament and qualities and so on. But see if you can also tune into that universal thing in them, which is their wish to grow. And flourish. So we can imagine that this friend, like ourselves, would like to uncover their deepest potential. And we can appreciate that in them. Even foster it with our minds. Or with our heart. And now in a final stage of the meditation, we'll just keep a gentle hold of that atmosphere of a person's wish to grow. And gradually start bringing others to mind as well. So you could just imagine all of the people tuned into this live stream. All of the people in whatever building you're in. Or further away. All with a sense of these other people, other beings, as people we would ultimately want to act towards in friendship. So the heart's love is not limited. We can expand this openness as far as we like. Or just imagine how that would be. And just starting to let go of that effort now, or that image. Perhaps just coming back to the room where you're sitting. Tuning into sounds, perhaps, anything you can hear. Your own breath. And opening your eyes and bringing the meditation to a close. Okay, so the lights are back up, and we've got a bit of time for your questions now. So if you haven't typed them already, you could put a capital Q and then your question in the live chat box, and my friends here will read some of them out.
Yeah, we just got a question that popped up from Miss Ed. And
from who?
Miss Ed.
Okay.
I'm sure if I said it right. They ask, can you talk about right effort when cultivating metta?
Okay, so the question is from Miss Aya, thank you, is can I talk about right effort when cultivating meditation? Just so I can keep an eye on the time, can you give me a picture of how many other questions we've got?
Just a couple more.
Couple more?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's a big question, right effort. Probably one of the main things is to make what I actually call a balanced effort. You might be asking it in those words, right effort, because that's the name of one of the limbs of the Eightfold Path, which is one of the most widely known and traditional formulations of the Buddhist path. With meditation particularly, yes, I'd talk about balanced effort. And that will often be to do with a combination of breadth and focus. So while keeping what we call the object of meditation in our mind, which always sounds weird with a metta bhavana because it's not an object, it's a person. But while keeping that particular focus in mind, we want to also stay sensitive to the whole of our experience. An easy way to do that, if we're starting to drift or if our effort to concentrate is becoming over intense, is to just use the physical senses. A bit as we were doing at the end of the meditation there, and that's one way to just broaden out your attention. And then the risk there, because there's risks everywhere, is that the energy will become rather flat and we'll start drifting either without noticing or partially noticing and deciding that for now we don't mind. So we need to go back to focus. So I guess this is sort of one tool I'm giving you. Breadth and focus, and keeping both in mind, perhaps just correcting each one with the other gently like that, and you'll just have to find your way with it. But also bearing in mind that both are possible at the same time. If that feels too complicated, just go back to one and then balancing it back out with the other. But the meditation can really change the quality of your awareness, even just while you're doing it, it's as though the mind and the senses become slightly different. And you may find, I think what I'm trying to do here is just give a little image for breadth and focus at the same time, is that you're still experiencing your physical senses, but it may feel as though the body is less bounded, less literally bounded, as though with a line around it that just ends at the skin, if you see what I mean. And it's not so much there's a body in here and a room out there, for example, but you're just experiencing all of it in a slightly less sharply differentiated way, but no less aware, in fact, more aware. It's said that with particularly absorbed meditation states, the physical senses may actually start to temporarily drop away as well. But I can't say I know what that's like myself, so better not go further down that road. But yeah, try breadth and focus particularly, and look out for stories. So anytime you get really discursive or start to talk, start a conversation in your head, just come back to really simple experience. I'd also say with the metta bhavana, keep it simple. Just bring the person to mind. See what that's like. See if you can nudge it in the direction of well-wishing, and just tune in, like I say, to that wish in somebody to grow. Another teacher of mine once said, always try to relate to the part of somebody that can take responsibility for themselves, which I particularly liked, because there'll be aspects or parts of us that don't really want to grow and resist it and react and so on. But I think you can always find in someone, so here I'm just expounding a little bit on what I said in the meditation, you can always find in somebody the genuine aspiration to be more than they presently are. So look for that in them, and that hopefully that will feed our sense of appreciation. Any appreciation is good. That's where we're going in the metta bhavana. So just celebrate and make use of any sense of that you have. Yeah. Anyway, thank you, Nisaya. That's probably enough on that one. So take another one.
Yeah, Mrs. Thank you. Great advice and nice here put into words. So James asks, he says, are you saying that we should have friends who share experience of meditation and in Buddhism in order to receive this sort of helpful feedback?
Which James is that? I wonder if it's a James
James
I know.
Newton.
James Newton. Oh, no, that's not a James I know. Anyway, hello, James Newton. In a word, I am saying that, yeah. Slightly depends what you mean by should, but I would say that for a sustainable meditation, I don't even like saying meditation practice, actually. I think I want to say a life with meditation in it, a meditating life. If we want that, we'll need good friends who are doing the same. So perhaps that one's fairly simple. I am saying that. But it's not just for feedback, if you like, since you mentioned that, James. I'd probably go back to that image that my friend Mike Bandhu gave me, which is we're climbing a mountain together with him probably leading most of the time. That's in the case of where you've got a gap in experience, someone much more experienced. But we'll also want friends with people who've got involved around the same time as us, to explore it with sort of direct sympathy for where we're at. I'm looking at Max and Claudio behind the camera here because they moved into our community at the same time and got involved in the Buddhist Center around the same time, I think. So I can see people just there who are doing what I'm describing. Yes, I think it's a very, very good thing and important, yeah. What have we got next?
I guess a bit more on that topic of having friends who can give feedback. Sandra asks, sort of, if you always seek the counsel of a wiser person, guess as opposed to just different sorts of levels of experience, as it were.
So the question is, should you always seek the counsel of a wiser person?
Yeah, Sandra.
All right. Is that Zandra Milo?
Yes.
Hello, Zandra. Nice to see you. Well, you've put it even in the traditional language, because the counsel of the wise is often mentioned in Buddhist literature, and certainly is important. When you say, should you always do that? I suppose I was saying in answer to the previous question that you want friends practicing meditation and Buddhism more experienced than you, but also peers, roughly speaking. You do want both. Both have got their sort of, both can offer something that the other can't. But to focus on the particular thing you've asked about, I mean, that's particularly strong in Buddhist tradition, actually, that cultivating the company of the wise. You could say, if we want to learn and to grow, well, spend time around people who we think are a bit wiser than us. Sort of obvious, perhaps, when I put it like that. I like, well, in non-lockdown life, in the old world, I like going climbing at the Mile End climbing wall just down the road, and I saw a notice there once with some climbing tips on it or something, a laminated thing on the wall that said, among other tips, said, try going climbing with someone who's a little bit better than you. And I liked that. I think they were saying it because it means you won't get downhearted by, you won't feel useless if they're leaping up all sorts of routes and walls that you wouldn't have a hope with. But I climb better when I'm there with someone who climbs a bit better than me, because it pushes me a bit more, gives me a bit more determination, maybe a bit of healthy competitiveness, just a little bit every now and then, well, helps me feel that I can go further. If you can relate to a person and they've cultivated qualities, well, a quality you don't have or would like to have more of, well, then that says that you can do it too, doesn't it? So the counsel of the wise, yeah. Yep, very, very important, I think. I just think there was one other thing I wanted to say about that. It might fall back into my head. Let's have one more if there's time, Claudio, and
Yes.
but thank you, Sandra.
Yeah, quite well linked to how we find what we really want from life. JW asks if JW says that they often sort of feel some resentment and difficulty having to work jobs that they don't really enjoy, and they'd much rather be meditating or painting at home.
Okay.
And if you've got some sort of practical advice or any sort of advice.
Well, hello, JW. Thanks for that. I think I will have to sort of guess at the meditation link there in your question, because you're saying, just to repeat it back in case others didn't hear, that JW is working a job he doesn't enjoy and wishes he could be painting or meditating instead, and sometimes resents that. So the clue for me there, if it's come up for you in relation to meditation or at a meditation class, would be in the last bit, i.e. the resentment you've mentioned. We've got to work, haven't we? We've got to live. So it has to be done. And sometimes it's making the best of the situation to do something that needs doing to bring in the money we need. It could be even better if we can align our work with our values, but I'm not going to pretend that's easily done. I know that it isn't. So if we're resenting something, I'm just going to explore that a little bit. So I might be making assumptions here, but here goes. I suppose we probably resent people somewhere. I don't know if we can resent a thing. Actually, let me attack it another way. If we're in a state of resentment, maybe it doesn't matter whether we're resenting a thing or a person. Probably will do something to our sense of ourself as well, and it'll be that area of resentment and its effect on our sense of ourselves and what we can do, where we'll need to do a bit of work using the Metabhavana. I suppose you'd want, with something like resentment, to start by recognizing that it is a state you don't want to be in. That might sound obvious because it sounds so negative, doesn't it? When someone says resentment, I mean, I've got into it sometimes, and I find it a painful word to hear, perhaps because it sort of touches my conscience, because I know I've sometimes been resentful, and hearing it spelt out as a word, I find very painful, because if I'm resentful, I want it to remain a private affair, that I sort of, even though I'm sort of chewing away at something and hoping that will have some sort of effect out there in the world, I'm probably also trying to keep it a bit private. And it'll be doing me doing my sense of myself and what I can do in the world some sort of damage, actually. Just today, what with a few challenges in my life recently, plus a bad night's sleep, I was struggling with my own sense of what I'm capable of, and trying not to listen too much to thoughts that I can't do the things I need to do. Now, that's not quite resentment, but I say it because what I was trying to defend myself against, and meditating just now has helped, actually. I was trying to defend a bit against a shrinking sense of my own capabilities, and therefore a more defended relationship with the world. And that's what I think is relevant to resentment. That's some of the why about not getting into it. That's some of why we don't want it. But like I say, we might need to start by recognizing that we don't want it. It's not in our interest. So the practical tip for that is in meditation to tune into how it feels in the body, how it makes you feel about yourself, to be resentful. Perhaps recognize that well, there's two things. It might just be the reality that that's what we need to do. So we want to cultivate the most positive mental state we can towards the situation, and sort of not resent reality, which I think is possible to do. It's possible to sort of even kind of hate the world, I think, isn't it? To sort of blame the world generally. So try not to go there, but tune into what that's like. It's shrunken sense of ourself and our capabilities. Work on that as a mental state. So that's one. But on the other hand, maybe recognize that we can make a change. I think it's a bit of a dangerous view that for meditators, we only want to work on our reactions to things. Actually, we might sometimes need to say something or do something. I've often come across people in difficulties with each other where one will come out saying, oh, I need to work on my metta. Actually, we need to be doing that work all the time, but it may also be that we need to go back to somebody and say, actually, that it did, I'm sorry, but it did hurt me a bit what you said, or there is a bit more I want to say about that, or, okay, I know our conversation got a bit out of hand earlier and I'm sorry about that. And I think, my contribution was such and such. However, I do also have this this extra concern, or this this thing to point out. In other words, addressing the objective situation will often be part of it, and maybe that applies to your work situation too. I don't know. But don't only work on your reactions. So there's internal and external work always needing to go on. Anyway, I've almost gone over time, so thanks very much to our questioners. That was very stimulating, and sorry there hasn't been more time, but you can just keep tuning in at 7 p.m. To our YouTube channel 5 nights a week to be getting more of this sort of connection, I suppose, with us, and really just with other people meditating. All it needs is someone who's been doing it a bit more than us, and probably there'll be things to talk about and hopefully something something to learn. So I hope you've taken something from that. I've really appreciated the opportunity of doing it. I've just got one more thing to mention, which is that we do everything, all of our activities here as volunteers. So if that's affected you and you're moved to contribute and help us with our work, we really, really welcome donations to the London Buddhist Centre. So I think Claudio or Max has posted a link in the chat, so do follow that up if you'd like to. We really appreciate any gift, however big or small. But for now, I know it's 8 o'clock, but we'll just do a minute or two more of meditation to settle before the end. If you can spare an extra minute or two, just to end on that quieter, more composed note, because we've done quite a bit of talking, or I have anyway. So we'll just do a minute or two of meditation to close. So perhaps just as you are, getting comfortable again and closing your eyes. And just come away from the talking and listening, the discursive mode. And for whatever else we're doing with our evening. Just perhaps reflecting that we probably want to go into it from a steady, relaxed place, perhaps even a reflective one. So whatever effect this short class has had on you, you could just gently put that down. And just breathe easily. So resting in the body. Okay, so sorry to run over a little bit, but just wanted to, like I say, quieten things down to finish on that note. But yeah, thank you very, very much for tuning in. Hope to see you all in person before too long, online probably before then. Thanks very much to Max and Claudio for their capable help this evening. And yeah, thank you very much for any donations you can give to the LBC. And yeah, see you very soon.